Hello, I'm Full Paragon, and this is the updated guide for the Trials of the Ancients for the new characters in the Danmachi Collab, as well as an updated tier list based on the current meta. So just to establish something right off the bat, I'm not going to do an exhaustive breakdown of every single character's trials. If you want to know the trials for the original cast, and for the characters who are in the ReZero collab, you can go back and watch the original Trials of the Ancient video, which I will link in the description. This is just a quick update for the new characters, as well as an update to the tier list and priority list for the trials currently in the game. For when Komeko comes out, I will put her trials in her launch video, and the same will be true for Meru, Vanir, Lalisa, whoever else they add to the game. For Super 2s, go ahead and check that video, as I'm only going to be going over the lower trials that cost Nyan tablets and the stats that they provide. We'll start things off with Ais and the stats that she gets from her trials. Her trials cost the scrolls and green gems. She gets 450 health, 2 agility, 70 physical attack, 40 physical defense, no magic attack, 20 magic defense, and no dexterity or luck. I have her alt here, which is Little Rafaga, but it is a free alt. It's not unlocked through trials. Just like most collab characters, she only ever gets one alt. Her weapon will also not be obtained through trials. She gets her weapon through the dungeon event, and it is not a personal weapon, as it is usable by anyone. The verdict on Ais' trials is I would get her to trial 4, or max her out at trial 11. She gets quite a lot of physical attack from her trials, and she gets agility on trials 4 and trials 11. I wouldn't really bother maxing her, as it's a lot of investment for a character that has a relatively short window of opportunity to be used. She'll probably only be good for 6 to 8 months, and after that she'll slowly get power crept out of the meta. So if you are a whale with a ton of extra Nyan tablets, I could see going for 11 or even the full 12 trials for Ais, but if you're just a player who has a few Nyan tablets lying around, it would only cost 3 to get her to trial 4, and you get enough significant stats off of that I would say that is worth doing. As for Bell, he's similar to Kazuma in that his trials are more focused on magic attack, although he also gets some physical attack. For Bell, he uses gems and dark jewels. He gets 400 health, no agility, 40 physical attack, 80 physical defense, 100 magic attack, 60 magic defense, and no dexterity but 1 luck. Again, his super comes with him naturally, you don't need to unlock it, and the Hestia knife is from event rewards or possibly the dungeon. The verdict on Bell is I would do 5, maybe 10, and possibly max him. He gets both magic attack and physical attack from his trials, and half the physical attack is on trial 10. It can be worth getting, but it's really expensive. I would stop at trial 5 unless you were a huge whale. So between the two collab characters, I would say that Ais is more important, though neither get as much as the main cast of characters from their trials, as they have no weapon or new super. I'd put them both in B tier, so new players don't really need to worry about that. This is more for veterans. Before we look at the tier list, I wanted to give a couple of clarifications. For a physical team, Mitsurugi is usually the most important character to trial, followed by Leah. Mitsu and Leah both get a ton of physical attack at 110 from their trials, and, at least in Leah's case, her personal weapon is extremely important for her. Both of them have powerful buffs that physical teams absolutely need, so they should be the priority. For mages, I would trial Wiz first, then Yunyun, with the caveat of you need to either get the new Light Ninja Wiz and then have the Valentine's Wiz, who are worth using, or of course just have Christmas and Swimsuit Wiz. Those two absolutely are worth trialing, as Wiz has the absolute best trials and the best weapon in the game. After that, your priority should be Yunyun, as not only are Yunyun's trials quite good and her personal weapon extremely useful, even off element provided it's maxed, but Yunyun gets excellent stats and is the core and backbone of all mage teams. Megabean's trials are pretty much mandatory for both physical and mage teams, as Railgun really needs Megabean's personal weapon to be worth using, and Railgun is absolutely where it is at for Fire Arena and possibly other arenas as well. Second string choices after you have maxed those first string would be Kazuma and then Aqua for physical. Kazuma gets extremely good trials, but he's just not on the same level of importance as Mitsurugi and Leah, and he's much more functional without his trials than they are. Aqua just gets really solid weapon from her trials, as well as decent stats. If you're going for mages, I would go Aru first, and then Rin. We are now entering a time where physical and mage teams are going to be viable, with some arenas favoring one element over the other, many arenas being mixed, and mages no longer having the utter dominance that they once had, especially in the cases of ReZero Megumin and even more so Christmas Wiz. Ais is great and will open the field up to physical, but we're also seeing other characters like Danmachi Aqua and the ballroom characters who are opening things up for physical teams to take the field as well. Alright, this is the tier list I have created for personal weapons / trials. Keep in mind though, you do need to actually have the characters for them to be worth trialing. So for example, even though Mitsurugi is a high priority for physical teams, if you don't have any good Mitsurugi cards, there's not any real point in trying him. The same goes for all other characters. Wiz is still the absolute best character to trial. Again, her trials are nuts for how much stats she gets from them, and her weapon is amazing with how much survivability it gives her. The characters in descending order there are A-tier trials are trials that you really need to get quickly, as without them, your teams aren't going to be anywhere near as good, and they get both powerful weapons and stats from their trials. B-tier characters get good trials and or a good weapon, but aren't as high a priority, either because they're not used on as many teams, or they're more or less functional without their personal weapon in trials. The characters in C tier are all weak and should rarely, if ever, be trialed. The one C tier character who's kind of worth trialing is going to be Darkness. If you're focused on Dungeon or EX Arena, getting her to the trial where she gets her personal weapon is more or less worth it. But past that, it's really not, as her personal weapon will never be used in Arena, and the majority of its benefit will be attained from getting the first version. In situations where we will have a DPS Darkness, she won't use that personal weapon at all. The other character in C tier who will move up at some point, and will even at some point end up in A tier, is actually Mia. We're going to be getting characters like PJ Mia and Ainu Mia, who are incredibly strong, and make Mia absolutely worth trialing. But their arrival is at least a month, if not more off, so she's going to remain in C tier until that point in time. Dust and Melissa are absolutely never worth trialing, their trials are awful, and the weapon is garbage. The unreleased characters Komeko, Meru, and Vanir. Komeko would probably end up in D tier, Meru would end up in B tier, and Vanir would either be in A or S tier, whose trials are quite good, and so are the cards that he's had released so far in Japan. But, again, those are all quite a ways off. I'd expect Komeko somewhere around Anniversary, and the other characters to follow in 3-month increments, starting with Meru and then Vanir after that. That's the video. Thanks for watching. I'll be coming out with some more guides and videos for the Danmachi Collab soon. We'll have our usual arena guides coming next week as well. I'm going to end up holding off on the dungeon guide for a little while, as I really think I need to play the dungeon a few times myself before I can offer the absolute best advice. Just know it's probably the hardest content we've faced so far, and I suggest you watch CM Tier's stream on the 20th if you want more information on dungeons before I get that video. Take care, and I hope you're all looking forward to the Danmachi Collab as much as I am.